Continuing our visit here in Pittsburgh, Thomas Sokolowski has had a long love affair with the work of Andy Warhol. After mounting the first Warhol exhibition ever in Pittsburgh in the late 1980s, he was named the director of the Andy Warhol Museum last year. Described by many as a real Warholian, Sokolowski claims that in the future Warhol will have the same impact on 20th century art as that of Picasso. I'm pleased to have him here to defend that statement, as well as talk about his own journey and his relationship with Warhol. The same impact as Picasso?
Oh God, without a question. What Picasso was for the first half of the century, Warhol, without a question, is for the second half. And even more than Picasso, he touched film, he helped form the Velvet Underground, rock music, he made movies, he made going out to nightclubs. He did it all.
Yeah,
he predicted everything we're doing now.
Picasso would live to be 90-plus years old, and and they're celebrating at the National Gallery in Washington now. Just the early Picasso when he was 18, 19, the Rose period, the Blue period. I mean, and that's extraordinary stuff even then. And then he lived to go through so many periods and to touch art in so many different genres. And you still suggest that, notwithstanding that, Andy Warhol, for all of his contribution, and without denying he had an impact, can be compared in the same...
Oh, without a question. Because
well, you'd say the same thing about Cezanne, and you'd say the same thing about Matisse?
Yes. Because what Andy Warhol understood was how 20th century, the latter part of the 20th century, America in particular, but now the world, looked at itself, how it wanted to package itself, how it wanted to be seen. He understood this from his work in advertising, and that's how his whole vision of art and how the way people interacted was created. Pop art wouldn't have happened if he didn't understand what it meant to be an American and work through the American system.
Having said that, give me just a quick bio of Warhol, and we'll get to the museum later, but a bio and then some sense of his impact and why.
Well, born during the Depression to...
Here in Pittsburgh?
In Pittsburgh, to parents of Carpatho-Russian, or what generally would be said to be Slovakian roots. His first spoken language was the Slovak tongue. Was born to really a poor family. His family worked in the scrap metal business. He walked every day and walked a hell of a long distance to high school, then went to art classes at the Carnegie Museum of Art. Moved to New York, went to Carnegie Tech, which is now known as Carnegie Mellon University. Moved to New York. Up to that time, he was Andrew Warhola. Went to New York, wanted to transform himself, wanted to be a modern man. He was sort of the quintessential American melting pot. Came from old word roots and transformed himself by means of genius and snap into a modern guy, Andy Warhol, whose real persona ruled the world. Everyone wanted to be near him.
And how much of it, and you see this with a number of people, create an image of what he wanted to be and then stepped up and became that? Is that part of it?
Oh, I think definitely. It was the idea of having vision, of saying that what the modern world is and what the modern world requires are on the same path. And I'm going to create images about the things, the mugs we drink from, the beverage we drink, because they are the material of our lives. And those have interest, they have dignity, and they say something about who and what we are. I mean, we look at marble today, but it's not a material that is part of our daily intercourse, if you will.
So his genius then, in the end, was the fact that he was a forerunner and that he, in a sense, divined a connection between art and everyday life.
And that's what artists do. I mean, Michelangelo did it in a different way with a different iconography, with a different style for his time, where it was about religion and passion and freedom. Warhol did it in terms of consumerism, fame, chic, and creating that pathway by which men see themselves, the world sees themselves. That's what art does. It takes reality and makes it hyper-reality so we can understand it better.
What do you say about fame? Everybody would be famous for 15 minutes?
The actual quote is, in the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes. We're on your show. We're famous for 15 minutes, and off we go.
He lived in New York, and the circumstances of his death.
He went into the hospital after a long period with gallbladder problems. He held it off because he had a mortal fear of hospitals from being shot earlier, about 20 years earlier in his life.
By a young woman.
By a young woman, Valerie Solanas, who was a feminist who wrote the Scum Manifesto. Had very serious surgery to repair the damage. Really, for the rest of his life, had to wear a corset to keep his internal organs in proper configuration. And put off this surgery, then finally had to have it done. Surgery went perfectly well, and then complications. In the night after the surgery, he basically suffocated.
And was there a lawsuit about this?
Yes, there was.
And was it successful?
And it was settled to the success of the family because a malpractice of some sort was proven.
And he left in a state of
sizable millions.
300 million or so?
About that, yes.
Okay. And did he, in his will, establish the Warhol Foundation? Or how
yes.
Or the museum? Or the
well, no. He decided that he wanted a foundation. It was fairly schematic that would help artists and art institutions to do what they have to do. And because the Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts, which grew out of his estate, and the Dia Center for the Arts, another contemporary arts organization in New York, had bodies of work, of Warhol's work, that they never would be able to put on view, they tried to find an institution first in New York and then subsequently in Pittsburgh that would be able to house it. And the deal was, if that organization could provide the operating costs to do so, this batch of works would be put on loan for a small period of years, and then that loan would turn into a gift. And voila, we're here in Pittsburgh at the Warhol Museum, which is part of a larger chain of museums called the Carnegie Museums of Pittsburgh.
And nobody in New York was prepared to undertake that mission?
Yes, I mean, simply, it was a financial one, and so that was something Warhol would have understood as well, because the operating costs for an entire museum, or what would have been a large wing of a museum, would have been too high, because both the foundation and the Dia Center were not offering funds.
And how much of his Orva is here?
Oh, we have the largest collection of Andy Warhol works anywhere in the world. We're the single largest one-artist museum in America, maybe the single largest one-artist museum in the world. And we have 4,000...
Would Musée Picasso be the comparison?
One of them, and they're slightly smaller than we are, both in physical plant and in objects that they own. We have about 4,000 works of art. Prints, sculpture,
He was
paintings.
prolific. Everything he did
Oh,
became
we think
art.
he may have produced over 15,000 art objects in his life, maybe more.
He was also incredibly savvy about money.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. He said early on, and I encourage anyone who's listening to look at his philosophy, the philosophy of Andy Warhol, From A to B and Back Again, which has wonderful irony in it. He said that the best art is business art, and he wants to be a business artist. And he felt he was a business artist because what artists do, it's not this romantic view that oftentimes we have of people living in a garret with a beret, you know, like Gene Kelly in that movie, American in Paris, but that it was, to be an artist meant to be a craftsman, meant to be a professional, and there's no reason that while you're doing those two things, you couldn't also, you know, pay for your supper. And that also in this understanding of marketing and ad agency savvy, that was to be part of the art as well. So business and the logic of business and the logic of marketing was very much wound up in everything he did.
What's the single most famous piece at the museum?
Oh, well, we have a wonderful painting called Elvis Times 11, which is a beautiful painting that's about 30 feet long, life-size figures, 11 life-size figures of Elvis Presley on a silver screen, on a silver canvas. So it's absolutely miraculous. There's no other painting like that in the world.
Andy Warhol died, what,
Died in 1987, so this is the 10th anniversary year of his life.
And today is the 3rd anniversary of this museum opening.
On Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th of 1994, the Andy Warhol Museum opened here on the north side of Pittsburgh.
And you're also having a Francesco Clemente exhibit there today.
Yeah, we didn't want the museum to be a mausoleum, so we bring in the work of artists who were friends of Warhol, who were in the orbit of Warhol, and that also shows you how great he is, because a lot of the work, maybe Francesco Clemente and other artists wouldn't agree, but I think in a sense they were touched by what Warhol did. And in fact, Francesco and Andy collaborated on works of art, some of which we have in the museum.
Tom, thank you very much. The Warhol Museum here in Pittsburgh. We'll be right back. Stay with us.